I'll never forget, we had just finished Nugget Canyon in 2007, and I think he's here, but his name's Bill Rudd. And he said, hey, now I've got a crazy idea. We should go start looking here, 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 and here, and start thinking about some different projects too. And this was one of them. Trappers Point was one of them. And then we looked at some other places around the state on I-80, etc. So it's been a long time coming. We put in for a Tiger grant for this job along with Trappers and some other projects around the state, Dry Piney, and didn't get it. But I've always said success leads to success, and when we could reduce wildlife vehicle collisions by 80 to 85, maybe 90%, we proved that with Nugget Canyon, then we again proved it with Trappers Point. And so now this project did receive a discretionary grant, the Wildlife Crossing Pilot Project. So I would like to recognize Bill Rudd and Mark Zorn and Jeff Short. We have a great partnership out here in the field, and we to make these projects successful, we utilize those guys' knowledge of the ground and how the creatures use the landscape. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Darren Westby, YDOT's director, and a pretty good leader.
Well, thanks, John. And I don't know that he introduced himself, but this is John Edens. He's the District 3 engineer for Wyoming Department of Transportation. He and his crew have had a few issues over the last year, and so on top of that, they get a really cool project. So we've been trying to celebrate success and give him and his team all the accolades that they deserve. So it's really cool to see an awesome turnout that we have here today. And so I think it's not only a testament to the long 16, 17, 18 years worth of thought that was put into this project to finally come to fruition. So thank you all again for being here. I got a long list of introductions, and then we'll turn it over to some speakers that'll actually really invigorate everybody's interest in the perpetuation of the Wildlife Crossing Program. But I know we have Senator Dockstader here. Thank you for being here, sir. Representative Bob Worf, I saw him. I didn't see Mike Schmidt. Is he here? No. Hey, and I'm going to apologize up front. I went through the RSVPs, and that's where I got a majority of my list. So if I leave somebody out, I know I will leave somebody out. I apologize up front. Hopefully the people that are here can back clean up for anybody that I might have missed that should have been recognized. But I'll keep going. Lincoln County Commissioners, Chairman Connolly, Commissioner Shumway, Chief of Staff Steve Allen. I don't know, is there any Uinta County Commissioners? Aye, sir. Thank you for being here. We got Senior Policy Advisor for Governor Gordon, Sarah Dorenzo. Transportation Commissioner Marlo Scherbel. Thank you for being here. Obviously, the Game and Fish Director, Angie Bruce. Game and Fish Commissioners. Game and Fish Commissioners? Race. All right, very good. Thanks, Ken. Wyoming Wildlife Natural Trust Fund Board Chairman Steve Meadows. And I know Bob Budd couldn't be here, but he passed along a lot of his well wishes and thanks for the project. Wildlife Fund Director Chris McBarnes and his team. Thank you guys for being here. Wyoming Wildlife Federation, Jess Johnson. I hadn't seen Jess here yet, but I know she had an RSVP. Muley Fanatics Foundation, Janet Cross and Joy Fagel. Thank you for being here and your support. Mule Deer Foundation, Sean Blazak and Karina Pekonen. Butchered that. I apologize for that. UW Migration Initiative, Bill Rudd. Thank you again. I know John spoke about you earlier. And then the people that are actually going to be physically doing the work, Oftedal Construction, a great Wyoming company. I know they didn't necessarily start here, but they definitely have some deep roots here, over 40 plus years here. Thank you to Oftedal for being here. Matt Otterby, Josh Whitkop, George Fruska, Brad Olson, and Willie Ducheneau. How bad did I butcher that? Very good. And then, you know, something that we've talked about, at least with the people up here a lot, is, you know, WYDOT, we end up doing a lot of the work. We end up hustling a lot of the design and the planning and the funding as well. It couldn't get done without the crew of WYDOT, and so we got a lot of, I know a lot of people are wearing orange, and that's safety first aspect of our mission, but we got a lot of people that are wearing orange that wear orange every day, and I'd like to recognize some of them. Keith Fulton is our chief engineer. Mark Ayen is our assistant chief of engineer of operations. Obviously John here at District 3. If you live in this area, you've probably seen 1,000 emails from Stephanie Harsha, making sure that you are as informed as possible. And I say that lovingly because everybody talks about how well you get information out. So thank you again for everything you do, Stephanie. Pete Stinchcomb, D3, construction engineer. Jennifer Hoffman, she's the resident engineer. She's going to be overseeing the bigger part of the project. Josh Newell is the project engineer on this project. And James Dunford is the area maintenance supervisor. That'll probably take over once the project's complete to make sure that it stays maintained over the course of the life. I'm leaving out Doug McGee. He's our public relations manager there in Cheyenne. He helped coordinate a lot of this, so kudos to him and all his staff that helped coordinate all the brand management of the agency. Also, that people that are here behind the scenes of WYDOT, it's not just the people that you see every day. The people that are out on a construction project or plowing the snow or cleaning up trash or doing those things. There's hundreds of people in Cheyenne that are supporting, whether it be design, right-of-way, procurement, geology, environmental services. And so just like to talk a little bit about them. Emily Worthen is the project manager for this one. Rob Bates is the acquisition agent. Matthew Ullman is the design engineer. Christina Spindler, she probably had a big hand in the design of this, but she moved over to traffic and was in the area, so she thought she'd stick around and see what's cool, and she's a photographer too. Geology, we got Matt Hooten. He's the project and geotechnical engineer. Environmental services, Tom Hart, wildlife specialist. He helped coordinate with Game and Fish and everything on design and discussion of structures and selection of site. John talked a little bit about this, but this is a $37 million project from start to finish, from design to finished construction. We started looking at this in pre-2008. One of the designers that, yeah, well, for those of you influencers of budget, so it only went up, what, 16 million over the course of 20 years. So the sooner we can get things on the ground, the quicker we can save a little bit of money, right? Luckily, with the new administration, we got, through the IIJA, we were able to get a wildlife grant program started. And with that, we were fortunate enough to get one of the largest wildlife grants that was ever distributed in the country. At that point was $24 million plus. We were fortunate to get that, which kicked this project into high gear. So the design team had to expedite a lot of their design and kick the turnaround into this in a little over a year to get this thing ready to go on the street. So a lot of coordination with a lot of different people, a lot of people looking into how to help shore up that 24 million to 37 million. We had a little gap there that we needed, and we had a lot of partners that stepped up to the plate and said, we'll go hustle it for you. So really appreciated that. So with that, WYDOT had, through their formula and through their state dollars, kicked in $4.5 million. Game and Fish, $1.25 million. WWNRT, 6.2. Wildlife Fund and all the other private entities that donated to this was just shy of $1 million. And so Oftedal, your contract, a little over, just shy of 31 million. That's a big project. I mean, we do a lot of projects. This is a big project. 7 underpasses, 1 overpass. This will be the 3rd overpass in the state. The first 2 were on Trappers Point that John talked about. There'll be 61.5 miles of wildlife fence on this stretch. Obviously a little over 30 miles project. Multiply that by 2. It's a lot of wildlife fence. So hopefully, with all the science and all the engineering and all the design that goes into a project like this, hopefully, to your point, John, we see the 80 to 90% reduction in wildlife collisions with automobiles. So with that, again, projects like these don't happen overnight. A lot of teamwork, a lot of passion, and funding. Again, thankful for all of our funding partners that I just mentioned and all the private organizations and donors that kicked in to make sure that this project can come to fruition. So with that, I would love to turn the mic over to Angie Bruce, the director of the Game and Fish Department, to say a few words. So thank you all.
Well, thank you, Darren, and I couldn't be more happier that I show up at this WYDOT event and you have a mule deer on your hat. So very, very impressed to see that. Well, this wildlife crossing in particular is going to benefit both mule deer and pronghorn. And as we'd like to discuss with Wildlife Crossing Project, you hear us talk about a lot of statistics about how many less collision there's going to be, how many individual wildlife we're going to save. But I'd like to take that a step further because those are all important. But we're also reconnecting viable habitats for the wildlife. And so we're improving their forage, improving their health, improving their safety. But at the end of the day, we'll have healthier wildlife populations. So just really want to hone in on that connection that we're making and reconnecting the habitats. So keeping wildlife on the move really, really matters. And that's exactly what the point of this project is. But today, thanks, Director, for outlining all the folks that contributed to this, because it's really about achievements and celebrating all those successes. But I really want to hone in on a few folks that haven't been mentioned yet, and that's the landowners. Augie Grazing and Sweetwater Royalties and Kemmerer Operations, as well as BLM. This project would not happen without these three landowners. Also, the counties. Thank you for your support. Thank you for championing this project. As you guys know, with our comprehensive plan in the state, we often have a top 3 or a top priority project. When the local people start asking for their project to raise to the top of the list, it really means something. And we heard that really loud and clear with this one. Of course, thank you to all the funders. Thank you to the Wildlife Fund, who will be presenting in a little bit. But then also thank you to Commissioner Roberts, because it was our commission that really supported this and stepped up and put the first $1.25 million down as a starter to show that they really supported this and they were serious about it finally moving forward. But also the work here is extremely intentional. We don't just throw up a crossing and throw in underpasses. It's all the work by regional game and fish staff and the district engineering staff that really look at the data and engineer a project that guarantees that success that was already talked about. It's really interesting. It's really an honor to go places and talk to folks, and we're really recognized about our collaborative and comprehensive approach to wildlife crossings in this state. I'm very pleased that our federal partners with the Federal Highway Administration recognize this collaborative and comprehensive approach and gave us that largest project to date funding through that Infrastructure Act pilot program. So this is also a day, though, I think we need to take a moment and say, what's next? Where do we go from here? Funders, we're going after Highway 26 DuBois project. It's our next project, and we're dedicated and underway to work on that one. Overall, Wyoming has really stepped up with donations. Individuals have donated. I was pleased to see many wildlife crossing license plates in the parking here when I arrived. Legislative actions, we talked about that money that the Wyoming Natural Resource Trust donated to this project. However, that came from the commitment that the legislators made to wildlife crossings. The governor has had many initiatives over the years to show his support for our projects. And all of you here, it sounds like one way or another committed to this project as well. So we are asking our federal delegation to recognize all of these efforts and create a sustainable federal funding source that we will need in order to do the next projects as well. Thank you for all of you guys for coming today to take a minute to celebrate, like Darren said. But there's more for us to do. But I'm reassured every time we come together like this that we'll be coming together again. So thank you.
Can you hear me now? Still all right? All right. Well, in true leader fashion, you don't read notes very well, and I completely screwed up the agenda. So now I'd like to get back on track with the agenda. Thank you so much for your words, and I couldn't agree with you more. We are working very heavily with the federal delegation on the reauthorization transportation bill coming up to ensure that wildlife crossing still has a place in that new transportation bill coming up starting in 27. So with that, I'd like to introduce Senior Policy Advisor Sarah Dorenzo from the Governor's Office. Sorry, Sarah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad to be here on behalf of Governor Gordon to celebrate this groundbreaking of a crucial wildlife crossing project. I think every single one of us have had some type of personal experience when it comes to a wildlife collision that affects both wildlife and drivers. And whether you've collided with deer, elk, or antelope on the road yourself or know someone who has, it's a costly experience that leaves a lot of mental anguish for the driver. Wildlife crossings, as you heard, are incredibly effective. And the wildlife crossing that's planned here on Highway 189 is vital to this region as traffic increases with the energy development. Wyoming has always prioritized the multi-use landscapes and believes that wildlife crossings are essential infrastructure that enable wildlife, recreation, agriculture, and energy development to coexist. So thank you for being here and for all your collaborative support. And for those who made the work possible. The collaboration in this state between Game and Fish and WYDOT, all of our local partners, all of our NGO groups, and our communities who invest in wildlife crossings are truly the envy of other states who wish to emulate the same systems that we have here and the partnerships that are so authentic and true. So thank you very much. And thank you to all who have a vision of a Wyoming where we don't hit wildlife on the roads anymore. Governor Gordon is glad to support this project and future wildlife crossing projects to keep both drivers and wildlife on the move. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Now I'd like to bring up Chris McBarnes with the Wyoming Wildlife Fund to say a few words, and he's got an envelope in there that I'm really excited to get. So.
Hello, good day everyone. My name is Chris McBarnes. I live with my wife Samantha and son Lincoln over in Buffalo. It's great to be in this country. For those of you who do not know who the Wildlife Fund is, we were created by the Game and Fish Commission and Department about 6 years ago to act as a nonprofit partner to the agency in advancing their mission. But when you look at me, I don't want you to see the Wildlife Fund. I want you to see all of the nonprofit private organizations that I'm about to introduce, because without them, this project wouldn't be possible, and I just have the honor to briefly represent them. Before I announce them, I want to add one more thing. I think Director Bruce laid it out perfectly, what we have to do for the future. I have states calling me all the time, and I kid you not, Montana, for example. Chris, can you put together a group and come up next spring and talk about how you're moving wildlife crossing projects in Wyoming? Like, sure, you know, Wyoming's the best. You're never going to do it like us, but yeah, we'll share a few secrets. Let me tell you what I observe, how we've been able to move these projects. You've got a governor, You've got a director of Wyoming Game and Fish. You've got a director of the Wyoming Department of Transportation that are working together as a team, as a unit. They're cohesive. That doesn't happen a lot in today's society. You have county commissioners, you have state representatives, you have state senators. Everybody's valuing our wildlife, putting wildlife and human safety first, working together and getting these projects done. I think that's very rare. And I think just so we know as citizens of Wyoming in the future, that's what we must demand moving forward if we want to see projects like this. So I really want to commend our governor, Director Bruce, Director Westby. I really think they're second to none. And then all you hardworking folks out on the ground actually putting in the sweat equity to move these projects, thank you, thank you, thank you. It literally would not be possible without you. And when I see you, I pump my brakes and slow down. I want you to know that. So now I want to introduce the groups that made close to $1 million in private funding possible. And just so you all know too, private dollars have increased significantly on these projects in the past 6 years. The first project Joey and I worked on together, the Buffalo to KC project, $350,000. This project, close to $1 million. For US 26, we already have $2.7 million completed for that project. So private interest in projects like this is going to continue to grow, and I promise, with the commission still focusing on this, both on the YDOT side and the game and fish side, you will have significant private dollars matched to these projects. So we have First Interstate Bank, thank you. Genesis Alkali of Wyoming, Commissioner Mark Jolovich, obviously Commissioner Roberts is here as well. The Knobloch Family Foundation, wonderful folks. We have the Mule Deer Foundation. I know the Mule Deer Foundation's here today. Thank you. The Muley Fanatic Foundation, led by Joey Fagel. Thank you, Joey, so much for what you do. Your Blue Ridge chapter out of Virginia was the first group to give money to this project, a group that lives on the East Coast, which I think is pretty cool. Wyoming's wildlife knows no bounds. We have Next Era Energy Foundation, Rocky Mountain Power, SOS Well Services, Spire Storage. I know we have some reps from Spire here. Thank you, guys. I see you in the back. We appreciate you. TC Soda Holdings, Inc., or Project West, Terra Power, Williams, the Wyoming Wildlife Federation. Craig, I know you're here, the new executive director. Thank you, Craig. Wish you all the best in your new post. And of course, the Wildlife Fund and Wildlife for Tomorrow. And then Joey and I, we also organized Golf for Wildlife outings down here in this part of the state. I never hit the fairway, but we did raise some money. So all of our Golf for Wildlife outings, supporters, thank you. So Director Westby, on behalf of all those groups, here's a check for close to $1 million.
I think, thank you, Chris. I think I brought everybody but an accountant or a fiscal, so I might have to give this to somebody responsible. So anyway, thank you again, Chris, and thank you for your kind words. Next, I'd like to bring up Chairman Meadows, Steve Meadows with the WWNRT.
Thank you, Mr. Director. At the risk of contradicting Director Bruce, is that really a mule deer on the side of that hat?
It's close.
I think that tail's just a little too big and those horns aren't the right shape. But, you know, I think it's appropriate. Sorry, I just had to say that. I think it's appropriate that we're gathered here on 9/11. Folks, because on 9/11, 24 years ago, we weren't Republicans and Democrats, we were just Americans. And today we come together, regardless, there's no politics in this. All of Wyoming loves their wildlife. All of Wyoming cares about our natural resources and preserving these things for future generations. And that's what projects like this do. And I think it's an amazing, wonderful thing. You know, we've been fortunate in the 20 years, this is the 20th year that the trust has been in existence. And in that time, we've participated in quite a number of these projects. We put over $11 million into crossing projects such as this, from 2 in the Bags area, 2 in KC to Buffalo, 1 in Teton County, 2 just north of here. obviously Dry Piney down toward Kemmerer. And I know that those projects have not only saved a myriad of wildlife species, mule deer primarily, but also antelope and other species. But you think of how many people, how many Wyoming motorists have been spared injury potentially, certainly, cost outlays, and all the aggravation that goes along with a collision with wildlife. So it's a wonderful project that benefits both people and wildlife. And to see this much ground, this much highway protected through this project is a wonderful thing. 30 miles is a lot. That's a big project, and the dollars reflected. You saw the large amount, or heard the large amount that the trust is putting toward this. For that, we have the legislature to thank. That amount would be about 2/3 of all the money that we expend in 1 year. So we had dedicated funds given us by the legislature, by the governor, and we appreciate that very much, and we were able to put those into this project. You know, and beyond that, preserving wildlife through creating fencing that either directs or funnels them or protects them when they go over or under it has been a priority for the trust through all these years. We put something on the order of $3 million, and that money has been leveraged with partners such as those here to over $22 million into those other migration route and wildlife friendly fencing projects. And what I failed to mention on that $11 million figure, that was leveraged through all these wonderful partners, both state and federal agencies, NGOs like Chris was talking about and represents, into nearly $100 million put into the ground in Wyoming to save wildlife, to save the motorists of Wyoming, and to create economic opportunities. You know, we don't think about necessarily how much economic activity is created when we do these projects, but it's incredible, you know. We talked about the construction company. How many people will they employ? All these, the fencing companies that do this. You know, the University of Wyoming did a study that showed that every dollar that we as the trust put in is then leveraged 5 to 10 times in the local economies. So it's a driver. It's a driver of the economy. It's a wonderful preserver of wildlife, and it blesses the lives of the folks who drive these highways. So it's a win-win-win all around. It's very grateful to have the opportunity to do so. Grateful to the folks in the legislature who created us. 20 years has been fantastic, and it's only been fantastic because we have fantastic partners. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, thank you all for being here. Now I'd like to invite the legislators, some county commissioners, if you'd like to come up with us, and we'll turn some dirt and kick this project off right. So thank you all for being here.
You want to move this? Yep. Okay.
Now,